All right, everybody. Well, I think we can get started here. And as Malcolm and I speak with you to start, I would imagine that we'll have a couple more folks logging in here. So, good morning from the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber. My name is Chris Berleth. I'm going to be facilitating the technology this morning. And as we get started, I just wanted to share that um, this program is made possible by our Chair Circle. The Chair Circle in 2021 is a program that begins effective March 31st, and it's a spattering of businesses across the valley who are top investors at the Chamber. Those top investors help us to fund this program so that we can continue to focus on things that are strategic in nature for the community. So our COVID response, a number of the collaborations we've had, our discussions on diversity and inclusion, and our committee work really come from the efforts of the Chair Circle. There are benefits that go along with being a Chair Circle sponsor. And if you look in the chat, there's a link to learn more about that program, as well as to book an appointment with me to talk more about it. So thank you, 2020 and 2021 Chair Circle sponsors. At this time, I'd love to ask Malcolm Dirk to introduce our speaker, and we can get started in hearing from him. Thanks, Malcolm.
Thank you, Chris. Senator Yaw, it's a privilege as always to have you on one of our panels. I want to introduce the senator. Senator Gene Yaw was elected to represent the 23rd District in November of 2008. And what's wonderful about Gene's experience prior as a former county commissioner is he spent 17 years as the Lycoming County Solicitor, which is something that I always think is very valuable experience. You get to see so many local issues at that county level. And he was named Solicitor of the Year by CCAP in 2004. The 23rd District is comprised of Bradford County, Lycoming County, Sullivan County, and parts of Susquehanna County, and of course, all of Union County. And Senator Yaw has been an advocate for the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber of Commerce year after year, a regular participant in our Legislative Affairs Committee work. And he also serves as chairman of the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee. He's also a member of the Appropriations, Judiciary, Law and Justice, Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Banking and Insurance, and the Majority Policy Committees. Senator Yaw serves as a member of several boards and commissions, including the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, where he chairs, and as a member of the Chesapeake Bay Commission. Senator Yaw, thank you for coming to speak with us again today, and I'll turn the floor over to you, but thanks again for your leadership, especially with rural broadband issues and all the many other ways you represent us in Harrisburg.
Thank you, Malcolm. I really appreciate the kind comments. A little bit, I'll go off script a bit. Actually, yesterday, the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, we had another hearing. We've done a lot of work. We started about 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago with a hearing in Wellsboro to talk about broadband and the importance of broadband. And I think that what's happened with the COVID-19 has just brought the importance of broadband to make it even more critical that we address that issue in the rural parts of Pennsylvania. I mean, telemedicine has become a real issue, and obviously schooling. When kids get out of school and they go home and they don't have access to high-speed internet. So just an FYI, Tri-County Rural Electric, we did a program yesterday featuring Tri-County, not because of that they have figured out the best way to do things, but just to emphasize with people that Tri-County Rural Electric, as far as I'm concerned, is probably farther ahead in providing high-speed broadband. They're using fiber optic cable to all of their customers. And the point behind the hearing that we had was to say, here's what they've done. You may or may not be able to do the same thing, or you can learn from the mistakes that they made. And they were very generous with their time to talk about things like that. So If anybody is interested, you might want to go online. I'm sure it's on my website, but it would be on the Center for Rural Pennsylvania website also. It was pretty informative with some of the things that they've done and how they got involved in it. So anyway, that's a commercial message for what we did yesterday. I was asked to talk a little bit about the budget, and I guess that what I would like to do is I'll talk about it, and then hopefully there's time for questions, answers, whatever. And we can also talk about COVID-19, and Chris, I guess you have firsthand experience with that. So, but we can do that and kind of informally talk about some of these things. The budget, obviously, this year was introduced by the governor by video, which was different than he's ever done. We did it on February the 3rd. And just as a background for this, most people don't understand Pennsylvania's budget total is a little over $97 billion. $97 billion. And of that, the general fund, which we usually hear about, that people talk about that the General Assembly has to adopt a budget. That's the general fund, and that's about 38 billion of that 97. Federal funds probably are about 36 billion, and if you add those two up, that's $74 billion. And then the rest of it comes in as a result of motor license fund, the lottery, other fees that are collected, whether it's DEP or any of those fees. And you put all that together and it's $97 billion. Now, the general fund, which is the 38 billion of that, is made up, and this is what is really kind of shocking. It's made up principally of three categories. One of them is the personal income tax that comes, it's about 46% of the general fund comes from personal income tax. 31% comes from a sales tax and sales use tax. And 9%, which is the CNI, the corporate net income tax. So when you add all those up, you have about 86% of the budget comes from the general fund revenue comes from those three areas. Others are like the cigarette tax, grocery receipts, some non-tax investments. I mean, the Commonwealth does get money from some leases, things like that. Now, of that money, the general fund, then how's it spent? The way it's spent is this. Once again, there's three basic items that eat up. It's just like there's three areas of income. There are three basic items that eat up virtually, it's almost 90% of the budget. Education is about 41%, health and human services is 39%, and protection, which is prisons, that type of thing, is about 10%. You add just those three up, that's 90% of our expenditures go to those three areas. And then of interest, I'm sure, to the Chamber of Commerce, we put about 1% into economic development. That's, I mean, and then we wonder why we have problems with getting people to come to Pennsylvania or attracting people. Even debt service is 3%. So the governor's proposal this year was a little bit more than usual. It was 40.2 billion. Which was a $3.1 billion increase from what it was last year. Just for comparison purposes, over the last 10 years, the average increase every year has been about 2.5%. The governor's proposal this year is about 8.2%. So it's 4 times greater than what the average has been for the past 10 years. What's really interesting, and I know we did some digging on this, is to find out, since the governor has been in office and the actual money that's been enacted by the legislature is $4.6 billion less than what he has requested. That's a pretty, just think about the budget if it had $4.6 billion more on it. The budget this year is, it's really interesting. Basic education funds, works out very well, finds himself in a great position. His basic education increase is a 21% increase in basic education funding. As near as we can tell, that's the largest increase of that kind in the history of the state. The amount of money involved in that is 1.15 billion. And I know that after a while you start talking about these numbers and we talk about 90 billion or we talk about 1 billion here or whatever it is. The numbers kind of all blend together and all of a sudden it's like, well, $1 billion here and $1 billion there. What is it? Well, it does. It means a lot. The education budget is 1.15 of it is under the this infamous formula that's been out there that there was a commission worked on to make the funding of schools consistent and equitable. The issue in this, though, is that 1.5 billion that is being distributed according to the new formula. If you happen to be a school which under the new formula, you would have gotten less money, you don't get less. You get, actually, you're going to get more, even though under the formula, you should have gotten less. So, I mean, it's so much for equalizing everything according to formulas. The budget also contains $1 billion for asbestos and lead remediation in schools. I don't know about you, but I thought that was a requirement 10 years ago that we take care of that. But apparently, if you did not take care of it, you're going to be rewarded this year for doing that. I'd just like to mention one of the things that an issue in education, and I hear about this. I had a meeting the other day with the business managers of school districts, and obviously an issue is charter schools, cyber schools, how they're funded, that the local public school districts think that they pay too much. Bottom line is this. Charter schools and cyber schools are part of the education system in Pennsylvania. They're here and they're here to stay. So it's something that everybody needs to learn to live with. What the governor has proposed is he said, well, we're going to cut the funding that charter schools can charge by about $229 million. And part of that is going to be as a result of reducing payments to the charter schools. And the way that comes into play is supposedly by treating special education according to the same standards as in public schools, that will save $99 million. And then he picks an arbitrary number of per student of $9,500, because my understanding is that some charter cyber school costs range anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000 that school districts pay. So he picked one, $9,500. And then what happens with that is that saves about $130 million. One other issue, while we're on where we're looking for increases, is the minimum wage. I think that it's pretty apparent, I know that there have been programs out there. The governor's proposal is to take the minimum wage from $7.25 to $12 by July 1st this year. And then by, I think it's 2027, it would go to $15 an hour. That change is expected to raise about $116 million in personal income and sales tax. So the assumption is if you raise the wage that much, you will get it back, or a lot of the money back in taxes. I'm not sure about that. One of the things that we talked with the school business managers was many of your schools, or many of our schools, I know, pay less than $12 an hour, especially like for cafeteria workers, crossing guards, that type of thing. So this, even though the schools are getting a lot of money, what the governor is proposing in some respects is going to take it back. And I will just throw this in at this point as I'm sending out a cautionary letter to every school district in my district. Right now, school districts are awash in money. They have probably more money than they know what to do with. And that's a result of the CARES funding that they've gotten. I think the caution which everybody needs to recognize with respect to that money is that's one shot money. So I'm telling people, you don't want to invest it in anything that is going to commit you to a long-term financial obligation, because next year it won't be there. If you recall, that happened, 10 years ago, something like that, when we had the Obama stimulus money, and Governor Rendell took $1 billion out of education, put it in other parts of the budget, plugged that $1 billion gap with the one-time shot of stimulus money. The next year, the stimulus money was gone. So the next administration was accused of cutting $1 billion out of education. I don't want to see that same thing happen again. I think my districts, or the school districts within my Senate district, operated pretty well. Unlike maybe in Philadelphia, where rumor had it that they took that money and hired over 100 teachers. Well, how do you pay them next year? And then came back and said, well, we don't have enough money to pay, so you need to give us more money. Unfortunately, that really does happen. A couple of other little interesting things about the budget, and there's very little detail on some of these things. Police. Remember, we had the issue, if you have a municipality, that you have to pay something for state police. Well, the governor revised that. And here's the way he revised it. He said, okay, every municipality is going to pay for state police protection, everybody. But if you have a full or part-time police force, then you get credit for it. Now, how you get credit and what they are, the details are still to be determined. But I thought it was an interesting approach as to how we get there. The other thing that obviously we've all heard about is recreational marijuana. It's mentioned in this budget. There are no details as to how we're going to put it together, what the tax rate's going to be, how long it's going to be. I think if we go back to the medical marijuana experience and how long it took to put that together, and there's still some issues with it. We're looking at, this is not something that's going to produce money right away. There's just no way, but it's out there, and something that the budget is based on. He has a lot of cuts or money saving ideas, supposedly through prison reform, bail, probation, medical release of older prisoners. I mean, the bottom line is we're going to let more people out. The prison population in Pennsylvania has dropped about 10,000 over the last few years. And it's mainly that more people have been released from prison. I mean, that's how it's dropped. Either if you have a probation violation, you don't go to prison, or there's more concern about treating people, not just necessarily putting people in prison, but maybe working with them to treat a problem that they may have. And I don't disagree with part of that. Some of it is accurate. If somebody has a minor technical violation and they're on probation, why put them back in prison? I mean, that makes no sense. And that was happening with people who missed an appointment and they went back to prison. Yeah, that just makes no sense to me economically. Okay, now that's all the expenditures, and that's what we're going to do, and everything. How do we pay for it? Well, it's really easy. We're gonna raise the personal income tax from 3.07 to 4.49, and a lot of people have told me, well, that's only whatever it is, 1.42%. That's not much. Well, if you remember your 7th grade math, which unfortunately a lot of people don't, that is a 46.3% increase in personal income tax. Now, if you just think about, we're going to give people a higher minimum wage, but we're going to take a lot of it back. And the frightening thing is, from your perspective, or Chamber of Commerce, I would think, is there's over 1 million small businesses that pay their taxes through the personal income tax rate. And that would be, for example, S corps, partnerships, LLCs, some of those, the way that they're organized, they pay on a personal tax rate basis. So by having a 46% or 46.3% increase in your personal income tax, your business tax goes up too. That is going to be, I think, significant when people figure that out. One of the things, though, about the governor's proposal for the personal income tax this year is that there are some exceptions to it, and those exceptions result in what amounts to basically a backdoor way to have a graduated income tax in Pennsylvania, which is not permitted under the Constitution. So that's an issue which we figured out pretty early on as to what was going on with that. I guess I look at this from my perspective. I look at it and say, is this the right time for a 46% tax increase? We are coming out of a 1-year shutdown. We're looking at businesses, trying to get businesses started, trying to get them back on their feet. There's all kind of CARES money, and there may be more money coming. We're not exactly sure. One of the things I know that some of the CARES money, the governor proposed that it be taxed. We did in the legislature pass a bill that said, no, we're not taxing it for state purposes. I just think if I had to look at this thing, it's probably, in my opinion, it's not the right time for a budget like this to say, here, we're going to spend all this extra money, we're going to tax people more, and that's where we're going to go with it. I'm not sure that that is really going to help us recover. So, I mean, those are some of the highlights that we've gone through. I think that If we want to talk about the budget or you want to ask questions along those lines now, or anything else that you want to talk about, we can talk about some numbers I know that I got from the Center for Rural Pennsylvania about how the Central Susquehanna Valley has fared under COVID, which is it's actually pretty interesting what you've done and how the reaction has been. At this point, I'll open it up and take any questions.
Senator Yaw, thank you. I have one question in our chat feature that I wanted to share with you pertaining to
Sure.
the budget. And just a reminder to everyone on the call, you are more than welcome to either jump in and ask a question or to use the chat feature, and I will follow up with reading that aloud. It's a two-part question. You haven't mentioned much about transportation investments. How does the PennDOT budget mesh with the overall state general fund budget? What are you hearing about the potential tolling of PennDOT facilities, such as the new big throughway bridge over the Susquehanna River?
I have not, I don't know what the latest is on the borrowing of money that PennDOT was out of money and, in their transportation that they couldn't pay their bills. I know the last proposal I saw was that they needed to borrow and the governor was transferring money, but we in the Senate, we have not started the budget hearings yet. So I really can't give you any details about that. I don't know. And I don't think, my recollection is the House has not, they started some of their hearings yesterday or day before. So I don't know. With regard to the CSVT bridge, I think, if we're talking about tolling bridges, that probably, and I am not an advocate of this, believe me, but I have to look at it realistically. Realistically, that probably is one of the bridges that it would make sense to toll. And here's why. Number one, it's about a mile long. The upkeep on that bridge eventually is going to be horrendous. I mean, I've been there. It's great, and it will be great for the area. But the way that bridge is located and where it is, it makes it very easy if you do not want to pay whatever the fee may be to go across that bridge, then you can go around it. Now, that's unlike the situation on Interstate 80, where you're driving and you're driving around and you don't know where to go. How do you get off? And you probably can't miss a bridge. The CSVT, that bridge, though, you can drive around it from each end. So if you live in that area and you don't want to pay a fee for the convenience of using the bridge, you can do the same thing you're doing right now, just like I do. Either go down through Northumberland or go down through Winfield. So I don't know. We had talked about it. There had been some discussion that maybe if we could figure out a way to toll that bridge, put the money in a fund for maintenance and repair of it. Because and I know the argument. People are going to say, well, I already paid taxes on that bridge. Well, you did. However, you're going to pay a lot more taxes down the road for the upkeep of that bridge. And also, let's face it, how many people would use that bridge that are just driving through? I think that look at the truck traffic. So we stand an opportunity there to maybe capitalize on it and get people that use that roadway from out of state to help support it. That's just thoughts, and I also don't like the idea of tolling and taxing things. But if I had to look at one, that's probably something that makes some sense. But to my knowledge, I don't think that actually, I don't think the CSVT bridge was on the list.
Thank you, Senator. I have another question from the chat. Thank you for the interesting presentation. How will the budget affect Penn State? Just curious what you think.
Well, remember, all of the state-related institutions were part of the original budget that we passed last May. The budget last May, it was a five-month budget, but for schools, and especially the state-related schools, it was a one-year budget. So I don't know. So they're not concerned this year. And my guess is what the position that they will be in is most of those institutions will be flat funded. That's the best guess at this point.
Great, thank you. There's a question Bob Garrett might like to jump in on from the daily item from Justin Strasser. The question was, Chris or Malcolm? So I'm passing the buck on this one, Bob. Can you speak to the chamber's position on the minimum wage increase?
Yeah, and happy to do that. The Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber's position basically dovetails exactly with the Pennsylvania State Chamber of Business and Industry, Justin, and it is two parts. Part number one is the minimum wage probably should mean something. It should be realistic. It doesn't help us to look in the rearview mirror now and say, oh, it should have been graduated all along. It should mean something. And secondly is we believe that the best way to set the minimum wage is by adopting the federal minimum wage so that there's basically an even playing field. And, a lot of employers in the Greater Susquehanna Valley have employees working in lots of different places, lots of different states, lots of different counties. And this sort of piecemeal or quilt type approach where different counties have minimum wages, different states have minimum wages, et cetera. It's not good for business. And we believe that Pennsylvania should adopt a federal minimum wage, and the federal minimum wage should mean something.
Yeah, Bob, I also forgot to mention, if I recall correctly, the governor's proposal also includes those people who are within some exceptions to the minimum wage now, like, for example, waitresses and people that live on tips. His minimum wage idea would include those people.
And I guess, Gene, it's very easy to get into the sausage making of this topic very, very quickly. But this is mainly for Justin's benefit, is Justin, there's an organization called NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, that annually conducts a survey of salaries, if you will, that are paid in regions throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In our region, the functional minimum wage is $12.50. That basically what that means is if you're employing folks and you're paying less than $12.50, you might as well plan on them leaving because they're going to go get another job somewhere else. Interestingly, the sector, the specific sector that is paying that minimum below that $12.50 is human services. And it's not restaurants. It's not, restaurants, a bad example right now in the middle of COVID-19. They've taken it on the chin, and anything you do that's not supportive of a restaurant is downright un-American, in my opinion. It's the human services, Justin, and those are, and what we're talking about is healthcare. We're talking about nursing homes. We're talking about people who care for other people, daycares, those kind of folks. Those are all largely funded by third parties, and we need to talk to the third party and make sure they're going to be willing to pay the extra amount of money. A child in a daycare center may not have the ability to pay the extra money it's going to cost if you raise the minimum wage $15. Now, I'm being facetious. We all know their parents pay it, not them. But if the parent can't pay for it, that means they can't have daycare. If they can't have daycare, that means they're going to have to give up their job. You know, it's a downward spiral that to just plow into this thinking you've got an easy answer to a very difficult question is not what we need right now, particularly as we're trying to build our economy coming out of the COVID-19 or the pandemic caused slowdowns. At this point, we need reasonable people like Senator Yaw at these hearings asking the tough questions about, you know, if you do that, you know, we're going to have to close down daycare centers. Are you sure you want to do that? And that really changes the conversation. Gene, if I painted you into a corner, I'm sorry about that, but this is not the time for you know, bumper strip policy. This is the time to be sophisticated and to ask the difficult questions and understand the data, the kind of data that the senator and his colleagues pull out from the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, that showing that there's smart things we can do right now to build our economy, and there's really bad ideas. Raising across the board, raising minimum wage right now is a bad idea.
Yeah, and Bob, I agree with you. I mean, one of the things that we talk about, and I mentioned it, that the governor's the budget proposal is by raising the minimum wage from $7.25 to $12 will generate an income of $116 million as a result of the increase in personal income tax and the increase in sales tax that will come from the expenditure, the hoped expenditure of that money. What it doesn't take into consideration, and it assumes that everybody employed at that, if there is anybody at that level, they will automatically, all of them will go to a higher level. That's not true. I mean, what if you lose 50% of the people that would be employed at one level and you raise the wage, and it's like Bob said, and people just can't afford to pay it, and they don't pay it, so they lay off the person. I mean, I'm just not sure of the math in this whole budget. I really, that's a question. I'm surprised that somebody hasn't mentioned. I just think I'm shocked by the 46.3% increase. I mean, if anybody thinks that, and I've said this, do you think that any politician or I'm going to vote for a 46.3% increase in your personal income tax? I don't think so. And unless you all want me to. I mean, you know, maybe we're all feeling charitable, and but the number of people that look at it is like, well, it's only 1.42%. I'm telling you, it's scary that people don't have the basic math skills out there, and I get down to the fact that I'm saying, look, here's what it really means. If you paid $1,000 this year, next year you will pay $1,460. That's
Senator, I have one question. And this relates a bit to that in the school funding question. I'm curious, I was reading the daily items coverage of what the projections would be for each of the regional school districts. And one thing that did surprise me a bit is certainly all of them received an increase, but it looked like the Lewisburg School District received almost 2 or 3 times what the other regional districts did. I'm guessing that's a nature of the funding formula, but what exactly in the funding formula creates that type of disparity between the districts?
I'm not, I won't pretend to understand that formula or anything, but here's the way it's been explained to me. And I have a couple of school districts that are in that same boat. And by and large, the ones that benefited the most are the most wealthy school districts. And here's why. The formula rewards those districts who have had a greater local effort. In other words, they've raised their taxes on local people. And this is under the formula, they get rewarded for the local effort. So I have Loyal Sock School District is another one comparable to Lewisburg. They once again, I mean, the way that they were treated under the formula is they've done very well. So that's it. It's a reward for the local effort.
Senator, if we just go back one more comment about the minimum wage, and I see an encouragement there from Susan Matthias. I guess the point that I was trying to make, and this is mainly for you, Justin, from a chamber perspective, and Gene can add his to well. There are people that have there's big sections of people that have been hurt by COVID-19, by the pandemic. They're trying to do their best to stop the spread of COVID-19, and they've lost employment, they've lost income, they've lost all those sort of things. And rather than just saying, oh, we're going to raise the minimum wage and look at all the money it's going to bring in, this is the time to be sophisticated and to go to the data and figure out how can we get assistance to daycare centers so they can increase the salaries for the people who work there. How can we get assistance to daycare centers in healthcare so that we can have 24-hour COVID vaccines and pay people to do that? And one of the ways we do that is by keeping some of those tax revenues local through the programs like the EITC and other tax benefits, other what I would call progressive, in this case, investments that we could make to make sure that people have the support to stay employed, stay in the workforce. One of the things we haven't gotten too deep into the data on this presentation, but our participation rate in the Greater Susquehanna Valley is lower than the national rate, and the national rate is an embarrassment. We have almost half of the people who could be working are on the sidelines for some reason, not working. What can we do to get those people the skills they need to get into the positions that they can make a better wage? What can we do to get training to folks who might be at that minimum wage level so that they can increase their situation in life and get better paying jobs? That's where we would like to see this budget go, is to invest in people, not just invest in bumper strip slogans.
Yeah, I agree. And I look at all this money that's been thrown around, and I just think I don't know what good is going to come out of a lot of it. I honestly don't.
Senator, so
Yeah.
I
mean, I lost all of you for some reason.
do you have us now? Are we back?
Yeah, I don't have a picture of you, but I have you video or audio. So,
Okay.
in any event, I'll go on. I'm not sure what happened. Let me see what I got here.
Gene, we're hearing you just fine. So
Okay, well,
if you can't see us, we can hear you very well, and we can see you.
What I was thinking about is this money, it's just been thrown around. I'm just not sure, what's going to happen with it. I mean, and it's like I said about the money that's gone to school districts. They have it. And it's like, okay, what are we going to do with it? Did we really need it? My guess is there's going to be a lot of building construction go on, because that's one way or one place that they can spend the money, and hopefully there will be some maintenance costs involved in it. There's no question about that. But I just wonder whether we've done the best that we could with it. And I think that we probably have not, because we've not done exactly what you said. We haven't focused it. We've just put the money out, and hopefully some result will happen. I remember when we did the budget, the 7-month budget in November, we put, I think it was $1.3 billion in CARES fund we used to balance the budget. And I had email from a friend of mine who owns a restaurant, and he criticized. He said, "Why didn't you put it in the places where you really need it?" Well, and I said, "Here's why we did what we did. We put it where we thought it would do the most good across the board." And I said, if you took all of the restaurants supposedly in Pennsylvania and you divided that 1.3 billion amongst them, they would get about $1,200. And I said, realistically, is $1,200 going to save your business, or is it really going to make any difference? And his answer was no, that it will not. And so consequently, he said, I understand. And that's kind of some of the things that we're not doing. We're dividing up the money to a point where I'm not sure we get any real benefit from it.
Senator, if I could jump in, this is Chris Berleth again. One of the things that we had been talking about as a chamber is how can we have kind of short-term look and a long-term look at helping these businesses in the recovery from COVID. And we know the budget's going to play an impact on that, as you're talking about the tax formula. But we know also that as the chair for the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, you've got some data, and we would love to hear a little bit more about that, and perhaps hear from you about how to draw out some applications in how we can be helpful.
Well, I'm not sure how. I think that locally, like chambers, and I have a lot of faith in county commissioners as to how they're directing their money. I know that I think I saw some numbers from the Center for Rural Pennsylvania about the amount of CARES funds that went to the Central Susquehanna Valley counties. It was around $18 million. But if you consider the that was a block grant type thing, or it was about $90 a person. I think that some of the local decisions, and we go back, if you look at the history of what we've done, what the legislature has done over the past year, we took many, many steps in the legislature to try and have more local control over the decisions. And I remember one of them was we wanted to, and I forget the bill number, the governor vetoed it. We wanted to put the decision-making for what businesses could open, how they could do it, especially do it safely, in the hands of local people who knew the business, knew the area, rather than just have some list that the governor keeps. And the result was that never worked. We tried that repeatedly. We wanted restaurants to open and things like that. We tried, and I still think that that's the way to go, that we need more local people to be involved. And I would like to see money come into maybe the counties or a more central location so that you could put it together and actually put together a program. Even, I understand the checks that go to individuals, but realistically, do those checks really make a difference? I mean, what is $600? What is that going to really make a long-term difference, where if you pooled all that money, you may be able to do exactly what you said, what Bob said, is train people to get other jobs, or to be able to have a skilled job to start with. Hey, Chris, okay, I got you back.
Excellent.
Yeah, well, sometimes you're just afraid to click on something because you don't know where you go.
I understand completely. I've seen Art Thomas's mute button come on and off a couple of times. I'm betting he's got some thoughts. Art, I'm gonna I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have something for Senator Yaw?
No, I've just been playing with my button. Senator Yaw, thanks for the budget outline this morning. You saved me considerable time reading articles. Sorry about that, Justin, but that was a nice cliff notes that I've taken some notes. I don't often take notes, but I did today. I want to update the group. I saw a PennDOT press release this morning through WNEP early morning regarding the toll bridges. And I've been following that for the last few months since it first was announced, wondering about the CSVT. And WNEP posted a map today and identified 3 bridges that, as of today's press release, are on the toll bridge list. And they are 2 on Interstate 80. 1, I think, in the Mifflinville area might be the river crossing. And I think 1 out at Whitehaven, which is probably, is that the Lehigh River out there? I don't know. And 1 on 81 North up in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton area somewhere. And of course, as you all know, our entire region in the Greater Susquehanna Valley Chamber is in the WNEP viewing area, and the CSVT, as of today, was not on the list of bridges.
Well, I'm sorry, Art. Go ahead, and then I have a question for the group.
Okay, and then my final point or question, over the past year with COVID, Senator Gordner a few times has talked about budget shortfall or lack of budget shortfall from a revenue standpoint. And there may be some money that was coming, or we're not sure. And, you know, between gas tax revenue and sales tax revenue, et cetera, there appears to have been, or is going to be, a shortfall that we're going to have to accommodate. Can you speak to the shortfall and what it looks like it is right now, and how you think we should close that gap?
The last I heard that the estimates of what the shortfall is going to be vary. It depends on when you're talking to somebody. The last I heard is when you put all these things together, it could be like in the $2 billion range. I don't think that, well, I can tell you one of the things, if you look at it, that's the shortfall when you look at all these numbers. And I think that there's these numbers that I told you about are not going to fly. I don't think that the school districts are going to see a 21% increase in basic education funding. That's the best I can say right now. We have not, like I said, the Senate delayed its budget hearings. It's the first time we've done this. Usually all the budget hearings go in tandem. The Senate this year delayed theirs. We're going to not have budget hearings until basically after the House hearings are completed, which to some extent makes sense, because we'll at least have the benefit of hearing what people told the House members or the House Budget Committee, and then be able to look into them a little bit deeper and ask more questions about it.
Senator, we have a question from Tom Rapon that's very current, and wanted to make sure we pose that to you today as well. Electoral politics has been more in the news. Is there any discussion in Harrisburg of studying Maine's ranked choice approach to temper the 2 parties' proclivity to take the general election candidates from their respective wings rather than the middle, where legislative personas and policy advances used to meet?
I wondered how long it would be before Tom asked a question. I don't know. Look, to be very honest about it, I've told people I get the feeling I am one of the few, or a lessening number of moderates in the legislature. Unfortunately, I think that the Pennsylvania legislature right or wrong, I think is becoming more and more polarized. I, and I look at it as like just because somebody happens to have a different party affiliation, I look at it as like, hey, I don't care who it is. If they have a good idea and it's best for Pennsylvania, that's kind of the way I operate. And I will give you an example of an organization that I'm involved in. A couple of them, I guess maybe that's where I get my background. The Center for Rural Pennsylvania is bipartisan, it's bicameral, and we've worked on issues that affect Pennsylvania. That's been the sole goal, and we don't take political stances on them. All our obligation is we look at the issue, we try and find out what some of the facts are, and present them or have a report done, or that's it. That's what we do, and hopefully we can provide a background that legislators can use. That's one. The other organization I'm involved in is the Chesapeake Bay Commission. And I'll tell you, I was on the commission probably 3 or 4 years before I even knew or asked anybody what their political party is. And the same with me. Nobody ever asked me what is my political party. And the Chesapeake Bay Commission has a focus on the Chesapeake Bay. We don't make rules. We don't make policy. We set a policy. We try and help people. We're an advisory body only to get things done. And it's amazing what you can do when people work together. It's made up of legislators from 3 states, from Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. So I think that maybe it's a long way to answer this, that maybe somewhere along the line, there's still light at the end of the tunnel, that we will get back to the middle of saying moderation of everything is the way to go. And these far left and the far right, I don't know where we're going to go with that. I don't think that's the way to go. Unfortunately, I think right now, we're headed in that direction more in Pennsylvania. We're going to end up more like Washington.
Senator Yaw, I saw a report from the Center for Rural Pennsylvania pertaining to the opioid epidemic. And I saw particularly that mental health and opioid issues have been a growing concern during the pandemic. In addition to that, as I would say, from my perspective, Senator, you correct me if I'm wrong, that has been a passion project of yours, is battling this opioid epidemic. Could you share your thoughts on where we are and what's going on with that?
Yeah, and thank you. That's an interesting question. I have been involved in this. I think I started this is like 6 years ago when I first became involved in this. And over the past year, I've participated in a program, and maybe some of you have seen it. I think there are 8 public television stations in Pennsylvania, and they all got together and they said they were going to do a program called Battling Opioids. And every station has done multiple presentations about opioids. And I have been fortunate. I've participated in, I think, 6 of them on WVIA, but we had one recently, and then about 2 weeks ago we had a hearing with the Center for Rural Pennsylvania, a follow-up on opioids. And here's the sad news in a nutshell. The overdose deaths are on the increase. There are some places in Pennsylvania that is increased by as much as 20%. And it comes about as a result of isolation. It's there. We're social animals. And when people can't get out and be social, they're going to do something else. And that's exactly what's happened with the opioid problem. I think, unfortunately, there have been some things that the legislature has done which have had dramatic effect. One, for example, we passed, I think, 3 years ago, a program, the prescription drug monitoring program, and that was to ferret out doctors that were overprescribing opioids. As a result of that program and doctors having to sign up, so to speak, or put on the record their prescriptions, what they're doing and how many, both Geisinger and UPMC have told me that the opioid prescriptions that they write coming out of the hospitals have dropped by almost 50%. That's amazing. And that's a place where legislation has really had a benefit. And I think you've heard me say this before. There are some people who can be, and the reason we wanted to target the prescription writing and stuff is because some people can become addicted in as little as 10 days. And it's all different. I'd be happy to talk to you in great detail about this, but everybody's brain is different, and how your brain reacts to opioids is personal to you. Many of us could take opioids for 30 days and walk away from it, no problem. Other people, like I said, in as short as 10 days can become addicted. I think the effect of COVID-19, the isolation, this is where broadband comes in. And I know that people who don't have access to telemedicine when they need to talk to a counselor, and I've had people talk to me about this, they're out in an area where they don't have access. They can't get to their counselor over telemedicine because they don't have the high-speed connection. That's been a problem, but we've probably lost ground. About a year ago, before the COVID started, I think we were making some real progress. And then everything since then has taken a backseat to COVID. Unfortunately, these other issues are still out there. And it's not only the opioid, it's as a result of people being shut down or locked up, so to speak. Child abuse is up, spousal abuse is up, all of those types of things, unfortunately, as a result of the isolation, it's a problem. So bottom line is opioid has become a back on the forefront. People are starting to talk about it again.
Thank you, Senator. I want to be mindful of our time and leave with a bit of encouragement here, which is that you've been a regular guest of Leadership Susquehanna Valley, and yesterday in a condensed hybrid format of sorts, Leadership Susquehanna Valley had the opportunity to have a local government day. One of our guest speakers was Carl Marrera from the PMA, and he shared a little bit, the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, for those who didn't know that acronym, and he shared a little bit about his views, particularly encouraging folks to get prepared and step up, which is really the point of LSV, that people would engage this year, especially in municipal elections, because we have a municipal election here coming up. And I was really encouraged. This morning, we have joining us on this call, Jeannie Bennett, who is in the class of 2021 for Leadership Susquehanna Valley. But we've got some great folks in the pipeline, Senator Yaw, and I wanted to especially make note of that. I know that that's certainly true in Williamsport, Lycoming, and other Bradford County and many other areas. But we've got a great pipeline of talent that I think can be influential. So with that said, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that with Art Thomas on the call, we have the chair of the chamber board, and he's championing a new strategic plan. Art, is there any comment, word of encouragement, question, or advice you might have for Senator Yaw as you embark on your new strategic plan?
Well, the buzz is workforce. It has been for several years now. Any magic pills you have that gets our people retrained overnight so our industries can have the people that they need qualified for work, we sure would appreciate.
I will put in a plug for one of my the entities that I'm involved in. I am also the chairman of the board of the Pennsylvania College of Technology, and I will say this: we are probably one of the few four-year institutions that completed a full semester in person instruction last fall. And the reason we did it is because we had both parents and students say, we don't want virtual education. We don't want a hybrid. We want in person. We want to see people talk to us. And we did it. And I think that when you stop and think about it, Penn College has almost 5,000 students. So we did a very good job. The administration handled it, and we met CDC guidelines and everything else. But I just, like I said, I put in a plug for Penn College and what we do. We have about a 96 or 97% placement rate. So it's pretty good if you get a Penn College degree.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate what's going on up at Penn College. I can say firsthand, we're a small office. I have 6 people on payroll at Mech Tech, but one of those is a part-timer right now because he's finishing up his professional land surveying. Well, hopefully down the road, he'll be a professional land surveyor. He's finishing up his surveying degree this spring. And the past few weeks have been a little difficult with the weather and the COVID, but he's at class right now. So yeah, we're looking forward to making him be a legacy here in our surveying department.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Senator Yaw. You've been more than generous with your time. I wanted to just ask Malcolm Dirk if he had anything additional that he wanted to ask of you or cover. And with that, I'll say that when Malcolm wraps us up, we'll conclude our meeting. So thank you again, Senator, so much for your time and your update.
I just wanted to thank the senator for joining us again. Senator Yaw, we really appreciate your leadership. We appreciate, as Bob often says, your, I forget exactly how he puts this, but the extreme center. And Bob could correct me, but it's
raging moderate.
Raging moderate. There we go. We really do appreciate the voice that you add in Harrisburg and the many good things you're doing in our area. We are grateful for it. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate seeing all of the guests this morning. It's good to see each of you. And Tom, I'm always envious of your fireplace. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy the exchange. And don't be afraid to ask me questions or contact my office. And if I don't know something, I'll tell you. But we'll certainly try and find the answer to you. So, and hopefully everything will work out. We'll come out of this, and we can start having meetings in person.
That would be lovely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.